The fastest motorcycle in the world, built by a 6-year-old man with his own hands. What you're about to hear is an incredible story, made of passion, courage, perseverance and recklessness. The story of a man who made motorcycles and speed his reason for living, demonstrating how money and age is never a limit if you're driven by passion. This is the story of Burt Munro. Herbert James Munro, this is the original name, is a man from another era. And I mean literally, because he was born on March 25, 1899, in Invercargill, a remote town in New Zealand. And his passion for motorcycles began in 1915, when he bought a Douglas, his first two-wheelers. And for the young man, it was love at first sight. He was so in love with motorcycles that in 1919, he added a Clino into his garage. But the spark that will bring this incredible story to life will happen the following year, when he buys an Indian Scout. We're talking about a bike with 600cc engine, 3 gears, rigid rear frame, pedal clutch, capable of reaching the incredible speed of 80 kilometers an hour. Well, remember that we're talking about 102 years ago. That was a big speed for the time. And it's hard to figure out what exactly came up to his mind. But Burt decides that exactly that one, will become the fastest motorcycle in the world. So he started to modify that Indian in 1926 and he did it for 22 years. And Munro himself, in a letter delivered to his English friend John Andrews in 1971, he wrote that he worked on that bike every weekend and every night of the week to participate in any possible race organized around his town. Uphill races, quarter of mile, and sidecar speed over 1 mile, setting many records. And among these records, one in particular stands out because in a consumption race, he managed to make his bike run for 49 kilometers with just 1 liter of petrol. And you know what's even more incredible? Is that Burt prepared his bike only with handmade parts that he himself built. And you know how he did the pistons? He used to pour molten aluminum into the sand of the beach near his house. So imagine this man going to the beach, between kids playing with sand castles, he was pouring liquid aluminum to build the pistons for the bike. And Burt recycled anything he found. And with these methods over the years, he built connecting rods, crankshafts, pistons, flywheels, lubrication systems, anything. All of this without any study behind. It was just pure genius. So Burt at one point realized that probably pouring liquid metal into the beach was not the best possible idea, so he started attending a foundry where he learned many things about metals. So Burt kept redesigning pistons every year. And we're talking about a time where sustainability was not even a word. And in that time, Burt was recycling everything. And in the corner of his garage, when I read it the first time, I said, okay, I want to do the same. Burt exhibits some pieces that he built, accompanied by the inscription, "Offerings to the God of Speed." And since 1927, the only component that they didn't manufacture himself was the carburetor. So at this point, do you think the modifications ended here? No, we're just at the beginning. Because after modifying the engine and the chassis, Burt realized how important the aerodynamic was. And it took him 5 years to build a fairing capable of giving him advantages. And so the first prototype has been built in aluminum, hammered by hand with a hammer. Okay, so we just saw a lot of work, but what about the results? In the end, all this work paid or not? In 1927, at Inverloch Beach, he conquered the speed victory on motorcycles equipped with sidecars with the amazing speed of 124.8 kilometers an hour. And we're talking about 1927. And this is only the first of the many records he did. And unfortunately, in addition to the records, also the accidents played a big role in his life. The first big crash occurred in 1927 in Aspendale Speedway. Burt crashed at 145 kilometers an hour in a dirt race. A huge crash who made it go home with many wounds, but still in one piece. But the most serious accident happened in 1937. During a speed race on the beach. It happened that another driver involuntarily hit Burt and the crash was terrible. Burt's helmet broke in half, Burt flied, then fell and rolled for many meters, losing almost all his teeth. And Guys, think about it. An accident like this one would probably make everyone lose desire for speed. But we're talking about Burt Munro, who obviously got back on his bike immediately. And 1940 was probably Burt's busiest year, where he raced in every possible occasion. He managed to set the New Zealand speed record at Aylesbury, I hope he reads that way, which I never heard before. And it's such a tiny village that if you search on it on Google, from Italy, it tells you it's in England. But anyway, there in New Zealand, he set the speed record with an average of 194.4 kilometers an hour, which is a record that held for 12 years. But shortly after, as I said, another big crash happened. A big crash caused him a brain hemorrhage, which made him unconscious for 1 hour and a half, and which made him stay away from the races for 11 months. During this time, his wife left him, probably exhausted by his obsession with speed. But once again, in this second accident, Burt demonstrates how he has no spirits of self-preservation. Not only he may return to the competitions, but in 1948 he left his job to dedicate his life full-time to the motorcycles. So Burt moved, turning this dilapidated shack into a wonderful garage. So Burt continued to compete for 10 years, setting many records, until 1959, when another bad accident almost killed him. He crashed at 180 kilometers an hour. He went to the hospital with many broken bones, hospitalized for 7 weeks and 5 months. After that, he went back to racing. And the years go by. He's 60 years old now. And can you imagine if me at 32, I struggle to walk properly with just 8 broken bones? Can you imagine him after all his crashes at 60 years old? But however, he still has a dream to achieve, which is racing in the lake of Bonneville, in the USA, in Utah, where every year the speed records are assigned. So the problem was that going to America was very expensive. So Burt started to save money for years, and in 1962, thanks also to the help of friends and fans, he was finally able to leave for Bonneville. And do you know how he saved money for the journey? He worked as a cook on board of the ship to pay the travel. All of this at the tender age of 63. So he finally got to Bonneville, and the travel of his life turned into a nightmare. You know, Burt was used to the local races where you just go there, you register yourself, and then you race. Well, in the USA, it was not the same. Because Burt, when he landed into America, he realized that in order to participate in the Bonneville race, you had to register yourself at least 1 month in advance. And guys, we're talking about the 60s, 60 years ago. There was no phone, there was no internet, there was nothing. How could you know how to compete in that race? And as if that weren't enough, there were also problems of technical nature. In fact, the Burt Indian package of the motorbike didn't meet the necessary requirements to participate in the race. For example, the motorcycle was not equipped with a parachute, mandatory for those races. The technical clothing of Burt was not good enough. Considering also a small detail that Burt suffered from heart problems, it's so many things were wrong that the organizers decided to exclude Burt from the race. So that was the end of the dream for Burt. Obviously not, because in favor of Burt intervened Rolly Free and Marty Dickinson, which were members of the Land Speed Record fraternity, which was very close to the AMA managers. And thanks to them, the commissioners turned a blind eye, let's say both eyes, to the delay of enrollment, to the technical problems, and they made Burt race. I mean, guys, they really loved him. And despite all these premises, the first race in Bonneville was an incredible success for Burt, after another crash, obviously. Yeah, because during practice, Burt decided to put 27 kilos of mass in front of the bike to improve stability, but that wasn't enough because he lost control at 260 kilometers an hour. The crash was just horrific. The commissioners got there as soon as possible, already knowing what they would find. But instead, what they found was a lively old man laughing because he was alive after the crash. So, with his Indian, with the reduced engine capacity of 850cc, he set the world record for the under 916cc. And the speed is crazy. 288 kilometers an hour for the 1 mile race. With those bikes. And you remember the fairing made with aluminium with a hammer? For that race, he used the fiberglass version. And that shell was so narrow that during the race, Burt burned his leg with the bike exhaust. So that man, that elderly rider with a botched bike and mocked by half Bonneville, took an enormous revenge, winning the hearts and the esteem of many enthusiasts. And you may say, okay, it's over now. He's too old for that. Not at all. He returned in Bonneville in 1963, but that race ended badly because he broke a connecting road at 313 kilometers an hour. But that didn't stop him, because in the years after he kept working on the bike, on the aerodynamics, on the improvement, on the development, on everything. Until in 1966, he sets the new world record for the under 1000cc, but that wasn't enough. He wasn't happy about that. He wanted more. He knew he could do more. So he went back home, he disassembled totally the bike, rebuilding it from scratch, and went back to Bonneville in 1967. Because this man never, ever gives up. And the final consecration became in 1967, at the age of 68, with a new, totally rebuilt from scratch Indian bike. In the qualifying, the bike goes at 305.9 kilometers an hour, and in the race, he sets the world record for the under 1000cc class with 295.4 kilometers an hour. And, get ready, this record for 55 years remained unbeaten. That 68 years old man, with half of his bones broken, and the heart going at 1 cylinder less, and his heart running on a 1 missing cylinder, just set a record that stood for 55 years with the bike built with his own hands 60 years ago. But wait, because in the tests, he reached 331 kilometers an hour, which unfortunately did not become the official record because that was not the official race. Burt participated in 10 editions of that American race, supported by fans and sympathizers who came from all over the United States to see him racing. All of this in an era where there was no internet, no social media. And in an interview, he himself tells how his base for operations was an old station wagon, bought in Los Angeles for $90. So his career ended in 1975, when his health conditions prevented him from renewing the license. And at this point, after all this incredible career at the age of 76, he decided to retire from racing. Are you serious? How do you think he could retire from racing? So, if he wasn't allowed to race in the official races, why not racing in the illegal ones? And that's what he did. He kept racing whenever he could, until 1978, when he died and leaving an indelible memory in the hearts of those who met him. Burt Munro's story is told in 2005 movie Indian, starring Anthony Hopkins as the New Zealand rider. In 2006, the AMA included him in the AMA Motorcycle Hall of Fame, and as for today, he is the only New Zealander who took part in it. In Invercargill, in New Zealand, Burt Munro is a legend. A large statue of him, into his Indian Scout fair, stands in a public garden. So this was the story of Burt Munro, a great rider, but above all, a great man, full of passion and tenacity. A person capable of going beyond his own limits, driven by the power of dreams, thanks to which if one truly believes in them, anything can become reality.